I'm pleased to welcome you. My name is Ana Ramos. I'm director of Fundació Mies van der Rohe, and we are very happy to host this afternoon these EUmies Awards talks that will let us know in detail the 5 finalists and 2 winning projects of the EUmies Awards 2024. This is the opening event also for the exhibition you see behind me, and for especially all the activities that we will have all over the city, starting today until 28th June. Those are the Barcelona Architecture Weeks, 7 weeks of activities around architecture, with architects and with non-architects, which is way more interesting, organized by 70 entities from the city which deal with dissemination and communication of architecture. And these Architecture Weeks 24 and next year 25 will be happening again and are the path to the 2026 World Capital of Architecture by UNESCO UIA, which will be the city of Barcelona, and which will be again a EUmies Award year. So we are probably planning a very big celebration event for 2026 for the Mies Awards, but we still need to think about it. But if you have funny, good ideas, please share with us. And that's all I wanted to say by now. I led you with Ivan Blasi, who's director of the EUmies Award, and will tell us what's going to happen later in this afternoon. So please, Ivan.
Thank you, Anna. Moltes gràcies i benvinguts també tothom.
Thank you and welcome you all to the presentation of this afternoon. It's very exciting to see so many people gathered to here.
There's so many people also in the talks, not only afterwards in the celebration and the cocktail, but also seeing you here to listen to all the presentations by all those people that have managed to build these amazing works, some of which will speak, but there's also some other friends that have also been nominated to the awards and who are also over here, and not only the architects, the authors, but also the people that have made these things, these buildings possible. So it's overwhelming, but we are really, really happy. And actually this very ugly slide does not allow us to put all the names, because we didn't have time to ask our graphic designer to put it a little bit into conditions, so we did it ourselves. But probably there's somebody missing, but when we say that this is done as a community, a group of people that make the prize possible, we really mean it, because it's true that we would not be able to show all these works if there were not people that would propose them, that would tell us that they existed, others that obviously kind of get to build them, others that kind of ask architects or make competitions to make these works possible. So you give the contents to us, and we struggle to edit it and to present it in different ways and to travel with it. So this year we have 7 works that speak German, Catalan, Czech, Corsican, Swedish, Spanish, Polish, French, and Norwegian, and 33 other works which speak many other languages, and a total of 362 which reflect the diversity of each work, or the diversity of Europe, and the importance of supporting this cultural diversity all over, which is in constant evolution. Each language gives each work its qualities, something that English probably cannot do as a common denominator. I think Frédéric Drouot would be happy with what I'm saying right now. But here we are speaking English right now with our 5,000 limited words, and this will allow us also to share and to understand ourselves a little bit in a basic way. The exhibition that surrounds us has been built from the documents and insights from all of you, or most of you, the experts, the authors, the clients, the collaborators, the photographers, the filmmakers, the model makers, and as Ana Sala states, a cartography for the EUmies Awards that creates connections through the geolocation of all the works, following the meridians and the parallels of our Earth. It is complemented by the exhibition over there, Architecture in Action, Destruction and Reconstruction in Ukraine, which we have prepared with the Ukraine Union of Architects. And I wish to welcome and thank Larissa, Anna, Natalia, and Alexander, who have just arrived from Kiev and who are also over here and who will be presenting their work on Thursday. Some of them have their work over here. So thank you very much for this, for coming here and having the opportunity to share these moments with us. And yes, we're going through difficult times, very difficult times right now, which make it essential to practice as a political act, as citizens in the world. So our personal or my personal support to the friends in Georgia, and remembering also as public institutions, we need to fight also the impact of commercial interests in culture. We are also accompanied today by Mateja Curir, the LINA manager, the European Architecture Platform, a network connecting relevant institutions with emerging practitioners and thinkers who work at the intersection of architecture and other fields related to spatial culture. The aim is to promote up-and-coming talent. So we invited 3 LINA teams that have been working to build today's event in different ways. The video on Piódão that we have behind by Tiago Casanova, Estelle Barriol and Fanny Bordas from Actor Studio from Rotterdam, who reusing wood have made these beautiful pieces of furniture on top of which there are the models, which are totally dismountable and that will later be transformed into other elements or other objects, giving them endless lives to the materials. And Océane Ragoucy, this is the image that I forgot. Thank you for reminding me that I had some images as well. The image of the exhibition. So from Greenland to the banana areas in the Canary Islands down there. So organizing the 362 works, following these parallels and these meridians, and finding which connections there are between the works that are in the similar parallel and the similar meridian. So, Océane Ragoucy, I want to thank you as well, because she will be the person from LINA that we invited to moderate the talks today. So, what else? The images, and let's begin. And I would like to invite Robert Konieczny from KWK Promes to step up here onto the stage and make the first presentation. And as we are lucky, and we're going to be able to make the presentation, the ceremony down over there at the Barcelona pavilion, we are going to make sure that that works perfectly well. And Ana Sala will be also helping us organize the afternoon talks. Thank you very much. Robert, the stage is yours.
Hello. So my English is not good, but I have one question. Do you have these things? It's very important because I will be speaking Polish and przechodzę na polski. Zaczniemy.
So I am now switching over to Polish. Let's begin.
Moi drodzy,
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Konieczny. I run the KWK Promes architectural studio. Some of my team are with me, and they have been involved in the design of the building behind me. I happen to be here and have the pleasure of giving the lecture in Barcelona for the second time. I think it was in 2009 when I held my first lecture in Barcelona at the Mies van der Rohe Pavilion, and those were wonderful times. And I would now like to discuss the Plato Contemporary Art Gallery in Ostrava. The Plato Contemporary Art Gallery was a result of an international competition to reconstruct the building of a former 19th century slaughterhouse, which had been placed under strict conservation protection. Before the war, the building was surrounded by dense buildings. They were demolished over time. And after the war in the 1960s and 1970s, the building fell into ruin, and that is exactly what it looked like. The facade was dirty with the smog that testified to the industrial history of the town, and the walls were scarred with huge holes. The walls were scarred with huge holes, huge openings that really bore witness to the town's industrial history. And the conservation officers wished the facade to be cleaned and the holes to be filled in, but we felt that there was a lot of potential in the building. We did not wish to hide the history behind the building. To the contrary, we felt that those shortcomings could be transformed into the building's assets. And here's the idea of the building. We decided to fill in the holes with revolving walls. We wanted artists and curators to have much greater exhibition capabilities, and we wished for the art to be moving outside of the building. We wanted art to be more accessible and more democratic. We wanted art to be available to all. So as you now take a look at the drawing, it shows the design in a broader context. To the left, you can see what was there before the war. You can see all the buildings that surrounded the slaughterhouse. Inside, you can see what we encountered, a largely destroyed building. And to the right-hand side, you can see our design. So what we did with the building, including the revolving walls and the park around the building. But the park, mind you, was not part of the competition. It was not within the scope of the competition. Still, we wanted to put up a fight for it. But initially, we had a different idea. Initially, we thought that it would be a square with no greenery available to citizens, but also available to artists. But with time, as we traveled to Ostrava on a regular basis, we understood that the town needed a park, that the town needed more city greens. And on top of that, there were new climate change reports coming up, and we became more aware of what was going on with the planet. And that's when we changed our mindset. And that's when we started fighting for a biodiverse park that would be established around the building. And in fact, the entire area was contaminated with chemical pollutants, so we had to reclaim that area. We had to regenerate it in order to create a space that would be beneficial for the community. Here's the plan of the building. You can see that there are two entrances to the building from two different sides. And that goes to show what the nature of the Plato Art Gallery is. It is a very open institution of art. There is a total of 7 openings in the building, so the building may open to all of the different all of the different directions of the world. And in fact, the outside space becomes an additional exhibition space by opening the revolving walls. Here's a photo that shows you that when the revolving walls open, the outside pours into the inside, and in fact, the gallery and the exhibition halls become public spaces that are available for everyone to engage with. We decided that the new revolving walls would be contrasted with the rest of the facade so that you could easily read into the history of the building, the difficult industrial history of the building. We have conducted long and difficult talks with the conservation officers, and we managed to convince them to leave the dirty bricks and to allow us to retrieve the industrial character of the building. The ceramic glazing means that the building is well protected against sunlight and heat, but the most important thing was that the conservation officers allowed us to finish the new revolving walls with a contemporary material that is micro-concrete. But at some point, a dramatic situation happened. Namely, it was almost towards the end of the design process. And if you look to the left, to the light-colored section of the building, that was exactly the part of the slaughterhouse that collapsed due to the unstable ground underneath. That section of the building collapsed, but it was part of our original design, so we knew that we would have to reconstruct it in one way or the other. But if we did that with brick, that would be contrary to our main overarching idea behind the concept. So we decided that the new section, the one that had to be rebuilt, would be built with the contemporary material, concrete. You can see how the old and the new structure combine. And here's an interesting piece of information. The bricks that we managed to recover from the collapsed part of the slaughterhouse were used. So we replenished the destroyed bricks of the old facade, mostly with those recovered from the collapsed part. And if you now take a look at the ornament, it was a very practical, a very pragmatic solution indeed. Because if you think of those scarred walls, the destroyed walls, we had to secure the sides, and if you think of how the ornament was cut through, well, we decided to continue with the ornament also on the new concrete revolving walls. Once you get inside, you will see that the dark brick is also found in the former atrium. The former atrium is now covered with a roof, and it forms the heart of the slaughterhouse and the new Plato gallery. The new elements made of micro-concrete are contrasted against the brick, as well as contrasted against the whitewashed walls. Those walls used to be whitewashed with lime, as the building served as a slaughterhouse in the past. Even though the dimensions of the revolving walls are very large, once they are closed, we accomplish complete tightness. So these exhibition halls serve as conventional standard exhibition halls. They are in line with all the requirements of gallery exhibition spaces. But when the revolving walls are closed, they also extend the display surface, and they serve as display surfaces for the art. But once they are open, the public space pours inside, and parts of the former slaughterhouse become elements of the public space. So the life outside blends with the life inside the gallery. You can see that it's a place of interesting workshops for kids and teenagers. The revolving walls attract people to look inside. And as you can see, the gallery is a gathering place for the young as well as for the senior citizens. It's a fantastic place where everyone feels welcome. And if the weather permits, life moves outside of the gallery. You can see an example of an arts workshop for children. And there's the biodiverse park that surrounds the gallery that made the transformation of the site complete. There are edible crops outside of the building. It's a place of integration for the local community, and it's a place that sensitizes everyone, not only to matters related to art, but also to matters related to environmental protection. More and more plants are now being planted, including trees. There will be benches designed by the local artists. The ground is fully water permeable. Underneath, there are water retention containers that collect water for the plants to be watered. The permaculture around the building also attracts living organisms, including insects, small animals, hares, and rabbits. But this is also an additional exhibition space for artists. And thanks to their exhibitions or outdoor performances, random passers-by may get into contact with art. The revolving walls are open from time to time, and that means that people can look inside, and that can change people's lives, just like my life was changed in the past, because I became an architect by coincidence, really, and it is now the greatest passion of my life. And I do hope that this design will transform someone else's life, perhaps in the future. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention. I am very happy that I am here amongst the 5 finalists of the EUmies van der Rohe Awards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robert Konieczny. And now we will continue with the second presentation about one of the other finalists. It's the Rebirth of Convent Saint-François in Sainte-Lucie-de-Tallano in Corsica. And I'm going to ask Amelia Tavella to come to the stage and start this presentation. Thank you very much.
C'est pas mon projet. Bonjour, bonjour à tous.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm going to be speaking French, so I hope that that doesn't mean it's going to be difficult, seeing that we have excellent simultaneous translation. So anyone, first and foremost, I would like to say thank you to Frédéric Mouillard, who is the head of the jury, and all the jury for, well, having kind of come to Corsica. And it's been a great honor. I'm delighted to be amongst you today. I really feel I'm in awe, and I'm very moved, really very moved, being here today, this afternoon, with a project on this very small Mediterranean island that posed so many difficulties, both during the research carried out and also during the actual building. So, well, I really don't want to give you a detailed presentation of the project. It's not really what I'm here to do. I would much rather talk about it and tell you in what way I'm waiting for the video, of course. So anyway, that was a tender, an architectural tender that was organized in 2015, and it was a building that was really a ruin. It had partially collapsed, and for historical reasons, we're talking of 1480 no less. It had been a castle. After that, it was a convent, and there were some Franciscan monks there. So, I mean, it means a building with different lives and functions and roles. And I found it extraordinary to have the opportunity as an architect to work on this, to intervene on what I might call the third life of this building. I was the one in charge of its contemporary life, yes? So it's quite an incredible architectural responsibility to be working also not only on this historical building, but the whole of the site was historical. So, as you can see on the video, this is what you see nowadays with the restored sections. The project, in fact, meant 2 interventions in different time. We had to refurbish because remember, part of it was a ruin, so we had to work on the ruins. And then we had to also work on the extension. We enlarged the whole site, and you can see this, especially on the northern side of the building. Really, I have to say that the work was just so inspiring. I mean, I guess, well, the jury, must have taken all this into account. But I mean, look at the place itself, because this structure is practically an object of nature, and it's part of these mountains. And there's this flat part. We have these olive trees that the monks had actually planted years and years ago. And then there's the back part, yes, with the valley. And certainly there's this very particular energy in the building, and it makes the whole place very special. And what could I say? It is like a building that's a witness of history, a witness of centuries going by. And it really is very special. Then, of course, there's a view onto the village, a very small Corsican village. And everything was so beautiful, is so beautiful, and the simplicity as well is just fascinating. So the intervention of an architect there was truly made very difficult. But I mean, well, sometimes even intimidating, I have to say, honestly. So, well, what I did was just dive into the history of this place. I just, I dived into it, into everything that had happened, the different transformations. I also, well, I talked to many of the inhabitants there. I spoke to archaeologists, and I got in touch with anybody that had anything to do with this place. And then for me, the building, the walls were alive. Yes, they had an organic dimension. All the buildings, all the walls were organic. And when this was completed, I really thought, how special it had become. When I was working on it, I was far from the world in a way. I was in a specific place, and it makes it really very special. And it is linked to the poetry that I included in the project. But of course, one has to be rational as well as an architect, because you have to talk about, space and materials. I mean, this is granite, and the vegetation had invaded all the walls, all the sections of the buildings as time had gone on. Remember how very old this place is. So I decided I would keep the presence of the flora and the fauna as much as I could in that granite that we obviously had to work on to preserve. And I wanted to find materials that would add on well to the existing granite. So first, I would say copper is what I chose. And you might think that copper doesn't really go with granite, but I find there's some kind of noble aspect to it. And copper and granite together, copper and stone together have this noble essence. I wanted also to preserve the massive dimensions of that granite, of that stone, that's so rotund and at the same time so Mediterranean and so protective of that sun. And we worked on it in this paradoxical way, can you see? Mixing, and copper represents this other side of the Mediterranean, and we did it in introducing the copper not only in the parts and sections of the building, but also taking into account the orientation and the way that the sun would move in the whole site. Also, I have to say that I wished, at least that was something personal for me, to continue with this very holy dimension of the site. It really is a sacred place, and it is very noticeable. I wanted to preserve this. There's a small church, as you can see, because, I mean, it is linked. All these parts of the site are linked to each other. And then the entry facade has this, the effect of the light going through. And what we tried to create working with copper was this scattering of the light and getting this spiritual dimension that for me was essential. I mean, never mind if the building nowadays is not, or at least has not got this true religious vocation, but rather cultural vocation, but it still continues its life having lived and having been what it was. Now it is simply, well, the house of this Alta Rock territory. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup, Amelia.
Thank you very much, Amelia Tavella.
We are going to Portugal, not far away from Coimbra, to notice a small village in the center of Portugal called Piódão. My pronunciation, it's not the correct, it's something like Piódão, and now João is going to tell us. To see this, the finalist emerging project called this square and tourist office in Piódão by Branco del Rio, and it's going to be João Branco who's going to present the project. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to be here. We'd like to thank the Mies van der Rohe Foundation, and especially the jury of this year. This is a very small project, and I think it's necessary a very special jury to bring this project to here. I think this is not, I think it's, oh yeah, here it starts, sorry. I also want to thank our clients, the municipality of Arganil. It's here the mayor of the city, which is a very important person for this project. So, Piódão is a very small village in the center of Portugal. It's in the north slope of the central mountain system of the country. I'm sorry, here, this is the elevation of the country. Of course, it will extend to Spain, but we only have the map of Portugal. It's important to see this because this central system of mountains changes the climate. It changes from north to south of Portugal, from Atlantic to Mediterranean climates. And this on the north side of these mountains, by being in the high altitude and to the Atlantic's exposure, it has the lowest temperatures and at the same time the highest rainfall. So it's a very harsh territory. It stands in a valley that goes to the north, and the right side you see Serra da Estrela is the highest point of continental Portugal, and this place is stuck in very small valleys. The village it's oriented to south and west. As you can see, and the square that we made, it's the entrance to this village, is the only flat and open space of the whole ensemble. So the project was to convert this space into a square and to rehabilitate the tourist office. As you can see, the tourist office is this building here behind. It's a construction in concrete from the 20th century, and it's probably the only misoriented building on the whole village because it's oriented to the north. So when we got there, now we call it a square, but when we got there, it was nearly a wide space, very open to the access road. And it worked as a parking lot. The cars occupied ostensibly this space, competing for space with people and the terraces, as you can see. The limits of this space were blurred and were full of elements that had been introduced through the years without an idea of unity. Without an overall idea. Also, this is the tourist office. Also, the schist pavement that we used again was very broken and full of holes. A big part of the stones had been washed by the cars. So the first thing we thought, the first operation we did, we thought was to establish new limits for this space. And one of the things we did, as you can see, the openness from this space to the road, it's like a continuity. So the first decision we made to limit this space was to plant a series of trees that would protect visually and by noise and by safety the square from the road. The second operation was to make a new pavement. And by doing a new pavement, we had the first issue that we didn't want to create a hierarchy of the space because the limits were not hierarchical. And the second one was to create like a carpet that would extend and go to and stick to all the limits and create an idea of unity to this space. The third decision was to clarify the limits of this space. So we used the operation of working in the tourist office to clean and redo the walls the walls from the several platforms and the base. And the base, as you can see, these are the walls, and this is the basement of the church. And we extended the intervention on the building of the tourism office to create this background to the square. This is the tourist office was divided into parts and was very unclear and chaotic, the organization. So what we did was solve the functional issues, and we used and let all the space freely to be appropriated as they wanted. We used durable materials, and we left the space really empty to be occupied freely. Then the intervention had also we made a pair of shades to protect the entrance of the tourist office and the public cloakrooms, and we proposed furniture for the terraces for the several restaurants and cafes of the plaza to give an idea of unity to the ensemble. And now, sorry, maybe I just want to read. The intervention was further the intervention seeks to continue a local material culture through the use of traditional materials and construction systems, collaborating for popular acceptance. The strategy involves doing little, discovering the minimal intervention that achieves the transformation of the space. The square is unveiled. Maybe it was already there, but was not visible. The space is returned to the people, free and unprogrammed, open for appropriation. Contemporaneity coexists with vernacular architecture in a smooth way. In the end, the project disappears and the place seems like it has always been this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, João. And now it's turn for the winners of this emerging category with Gabriel García Márquez Library here in Barcelona. So we are traveling from Piódão until Barcelona. It's a building by Suma Arquitectura. And I'm going to ask Elena Orte and Guillermo. It's just Elena who's going to present the building. So the stage is yours. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias de nuevo a la Fundación Mies.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you once again to the Mies van der Rohe Foundation. Thank you to the jury for being here. And thank you indeed. I mean, it's such an honor for us, especially thank you from the heart to Ferran Burguillos from the Library Foundation here in Barcelona. I always say that nothing of this without you, without your support, without your dynamism would have been possible, and this library would not be what it is without you. So my public thanks to you. I'm going to be telling you about the evolution of the project. The main idea comes from a series of, a stack of books, basically, yes? So we work with the pages, we excavate the pages, we make stacks with them, and in this way we create volumetry, special volumes. And the project of the library is a project that adapts, and we worked intensely also with the neighborhood in which this library actually is. It's a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Barcelona, away from the tourism routes, and it's the San Martin neighborhood or district, and it's part of Barcelona that doesn't have many public buildings and facilities, and it's also quite political, we would say. The plot where the library is crossing between two secondary streets, just two streets that are not important in any way. There was no special square, no kind of well-known street. It was, a priori a not special place, definitely. I mean, all we had was the density of the urban fabric in itself, right, where the library was going to be. So on the basis of this initial volume concept, the first interventions had to enlarge the public space because the pavements of these streets were really very narrow. So the first intervention was to generate an elevated square and make it possible to have public space so that pedestrians could walk freely. We wanted open space for people to come. The intention was for this library to be a hub for social interaction. We had that very clear. We wanted it to call the neighbors towards it. The second fundamental intervention was to recover the typical Barcelona street corner, which has a special shape. Okay, it's not a vertex, but rather as a diagonal. And we worked also with the trees. We wanted to generate, as I say, this special concept of volume. Also with the projecting parts and the trees, you have a kind of kyria that goes over the public square. And then the trees in themselves will have a great presence from the inside of the building itself, because remember, the intention is always to try and isolate people that are within the library, because it's in an urban place, but you want people to have peace as well. So there's a kind of isolation. Another very important pillar of the project is this triangular patio or courtyard that structures the project vertically from the ceiling, the top, to the basement. The building is fully built in wood. It's a wooden structure, laminated and counter-laminated, on three main pillars. And on these, we have bridges connecting one to another, generating spaces where the whole structure is contained, and at the same time, spaces that are truly open and released from any structural load. In our case, what we do is we work on what we call an ecosystemic design. For us, this kind of design, ecosystemic, means a way of interrelating all the elements of the built ecosystem, in which the structure, to begin with, both the surrounds, the facilities, installations, lighting, even the furniture, and then the books themselves and the archives and shelves of the library have their own sense and meaning. So we work in a holistic manner, truly relating each and every element. So every space of the library has a structural design which is different from the others, but at the same time with a direct relationship to the master plan, to the master program contained. And there is also a relationship with the sites and the general atmosphere. I'm showing you here in the slide the first floor of the children's section of the library. The structure here is dense, and the scale is made smaller because it adapts to children's libraries, and there's even a baby section where you see this horizontal structure related to the babies crawling in the way that the books and objects are displayed here, also the vistas, and the structure itself is it protects the children. And then the building behind this section is in fact the police office, and there, well, we have been working to protect what is seen and what is not seen from one building to another, in such a way that the library is, well, a walk along different ecosystems, each one of them trying to magnify as much as possible the space qualities in which all the elements, as I said, are interrelated. During the implementation and the development of the project, we were working on the structure, but also simultaneously we were working on the librarian program itself, taking into account what each section would be, because we wanted also a seamless experience. At the same time as there are different sections, we wanted users to have the best possible experience. We wanted to maximally intensify the user's experience. Then at the end of the day, let me tell you, this wooden structure has a recycled fiberglass film or layer outside. This has been worked on in the south of Spain. And this is a densification system to work better on the inner structure of the library and also expanding to the outside. And it's a filter to this outdoors because it gives the orientation to the library and makes it move, especially to the northern vector, to make sure it captures light all the time. And then you have these empty areas that go to those trees, remember, that have been planted outside, and that integrates the vegetation within the building itself. This is the render with which we won the competition in 2015. The library was opened in 2022, so that's 7 very, very intense years of crazy work. But we are happy. We are truly happy because, what with, you know, the first ideas that were presented in the competition and what has been built finally, well, it's all, we find, consistent, and it's a unity. These are, well, that's data, you know, the figures of the project, there's the built surface, concrete that we used, also the timber. Yes, and because when it was built, it was one of the public buildings in Europe that was using more exposed wood of the whole of Europe. I don't know whether I should talk about the long, long list of the advantages of building and working with wood. I mean, wood as a material is really able to absorb CO2. So then the carbon footprint here in this building is positive, not negative. And in the graph, please keep with the A, yes, because the C would be only if the building were to be destroyed. So there is absorbed CO2, which is more than what was actually what went into the atmosphere during the building itself. And then the social impact in the neighborhood, this circular building, industrialization. But there is another very important pillar to all this, which is the programmatic research that we developed in a parallel manner to the project. And it's one of the essential pieces that make this library a very special place. When we won the competition and we started developing the project, we were thinking, you know, if everything is online, well, why should people go to a library, yeah, in the 21st century? If you find everything in the internet, why go to a library? So on the basis of this research that we did, we realized that in order to make books become really and truly important, we had to convey the experience that books give, yes? And that way we wanted to link people with knowledge and information, because that's what we thought is the role of books. And then that's this program research we started doing. We took, you know, everyday experiences. You know, people go out onto the street. They like kind of being outdoors. This is very Spanish. Everyday situations such as, you know, the promenade, monologue, reading, patio, the peripatetic activity. We transferred that to the library, and we generated these small ecosystems within the library, and they are all located in a seamless manner. So one of the main ecosystems connecting the whole library, all the sections, is the main staircase that is placed in this triangular patio, and it actually organizes the whole project. It is a space that we imagine like a space of unexpected meetings, yeah, where surprise is always possible. We want people to go to the library and to go, well, to actually find themselves in an unexpected situation, maybe to do or live something surprising, not only go there, pick up a book, and then go back home. Far from it. Then here in these images of the main staircase, you see the difference between the spaces enclosed within the structural elements, okay, of these areas that go from one section to another, and then the spaces that are completely open with no structure whatsoever, and how there is this counterbalance of these linking sections on the stairs, and then the spiral of the stairs gives access to each one of these open spaces where a specific concrete program is developed in each one. And this is what we would call the different ecosystems. So finally, on the top section, yes, the roof, or better said, the ceiling, there's these skylights that take all this northern light. Wood for us is also essential because it means quality and it means warmth, and it confers that to the spaces. Then that very special color of light that is shining on wood. And then as well the touch, yes, I mean the haptic and thermal and hygroscopic qualities of wood, even optical, even the nice, lovely scent of wood. For many months, whenever people entered the library, they felt as though they were walking in a forest. I mean, really, you could smell wood everywhere. And truly, what is offered to the people is just a whole repertoire of different ways of sitting, different ways of enjoying the space, or different ways of interacting with knowledge, with culture, in such a way that every person can find his or her little corner at every moment in time. Here you have yet another one of the spaces in the library. We call it the Idea Forum. These are small bubbles encapsulated in special curtains for small, reading groups or small encounters. Then you have the upper floor, which is the third floor, really, the main one, which is what we call the reading palace, where we want to work on this noble aspect of public spaces. We want people to see and feel that public space has been done for them, and that people truly would rather stay at the library reading a novel and not so much going, hurrying back home with the book. No, it's not just selecting the book and going back home, but rather spending time feeling there as comfortable as one feels at home, or even more comfortable. And, well, these are the cathedrals of the 21st century, aren't they? The space for social meeting as well. Here you see the mirador parts, those lovely trees I was mentioning that isolate you completely from that very dense urban fabric that the library is placed within. This is yet another one of the views. Here in one of the spaces you see a winter garden kind of place with different furniture and a different way for people to relate to reading. And finally now, one of the final ecosystems I wanted to tell you about is the showcase, we might call it. This is a connection between the inside and the outside. We wanted to have this at all times, and we worked on it right from the beginning. We really didn't want to have any kind of limits that would make people feel cut off. No, the library had to have this expansive nature. We wanted it to grow outwards so that people walking along the street would feel like going inside. And in these images you can see, yes, this arch between this cantilever, the overhanging structure, and the trees that I was mentioning before, yes, the way they work together and how you generate this public space, and then this elevated square where maybe formal or non-formal things might happen, a jam session, summer cinema, you name it. Many different situations can take place, and this is yet another view. So really, at the end of the day, this is a building that's really part of the neighborhood, and all the people there in that district feel very proud. They've collaborated. I mean, the president of the Neighbors Association was part of the jury, has been present throughout the project. Many different NGOs and associations participated. As I said, it's quite a kind of politically minded and active neighborhood. So there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion, dialogue. The people have felt represented respected and listened to. So it's a public building that people feel belongs to them. They're really happy and proud to have it there. And truly, well, I think that's really what makes us the happiest, right? I mean, to see how the people of the neighborhood are truly enjoying that building. And that's all from me. So here you have it, and at the end, that's the scale model that you have here with all the details and all the team of workers, collaborators, and people who participated in the project, many people, and they all deserve the thanks, because the prize, the award, is theirs as well for the huge effort and the passion that they invested. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena, and congratulations again. And now with these 4 words, we are going to start the first panel of this afternoon. I'm going to ask Océane Ragoucy, who's going to moderate. She's an architect, curator, and editor, and also fellow of the LINA platform. So thank you. And I'm going to invite also Robert Konieczny to join us, together with the client, actually the director of Plato Art Gallery in Ostrava, Marek Pokorny, to join us here. And then also from Branco del Rio studio in Portugal, it's going to be Paula del Rio and Guillermo Sevillano from Suma Architects, together with Ferran Burguillos, representing Bibliotecas de Barcelona, and also Amelia Tavella. So thank you very much. And
I'm really happy to be moderating this conversation with you all, and we will use the next 30 minutes to raise some questions about transformation, one of the key themes the jury has highlighted, and it will be short, so then you will have the opportunity to talk with each of them during some more informal conversations during the break. I'd like to start by talking about transformation in some of its different meanings, because of course we talk about transformation of buildings, obviously, but also transformation in our methods, in our approaches, and this is what I would like to raise. The nominated projects are really very clear examples that today it's just impossible not to consider repairing, transforming before destroying our building. And when I started to study architecture back in the 2020s, we were already far from modernism, but in France, at the architectural scale, teaching was entirely focused on the design of contextual spaces, of course, but all new ones. It was a moment of total unawareness of the finiteness of resources, and at the time, transformation of building was in the hands of just a few architects. Some of them are here, but who had this great understanding of the needs for change in order to be able to transform. But today, almost 100% of my students where I teach in Paris choose to work on transformation projects. And most of them are now aware of our common conditions of habitability, but also quite aware of the cost and value of conditions, material, and at least in a symbolic way, but also in terms of carbon footprint. So I want to ask what happened in between when we were studying and when you are building now. And I think it concerns a certain way of talking about time and maybe uncertainty. So I would like to start by asking Guillermo Sevillano and Ferran Burguillos. Maybe if you want to talk about the library we just saw, so it's the last project that was presented, and how do you take into account the transformation of today's uses? How do you take into account the uses of tomorrow when just building such a new equipment?
So I think there were a number of issues that we were aware of. One was the question of transforming the place itself. There was no place as happening, as Paula and João were mentioning in their case. There was a place that needed to appear, and that's when architecture really helps in that situation. Another thing we were aware of was the question of the program itself. Let's say that digital alternatives put in crisis the program of the library, as happens with the public square or happens with other alternatives, as happens with the workspace and so on. So we had to reflect on that and come up with solutions that really vindicate the role of architecture and the role of the physical space itself to really make the trip to the library worth doing. And the third was probably the role of architects itself, the mission we have in us and the sort of awareness we have regarding emergencies with the climate, political problems, and so on. And I think that sort of the way we engage with the developers, with the organizers, with the libraries of Barcelona and the different institutions, it's quite different from maybe even what the institutions are expecting from the architects itself. We're coming from years of stardom, architecture, as you were mentioning, and maybe our generations are addressing and doing our things in a different way. Of course, that doesn't say that it's easier, but on the contrary, it's more difficult, it's more demanding, it requires more sensitivity, it requires a lot of iterations of the same thing, and we have to be completely aware of every little agent that is participating on developments like this. Even cats, as happened in the site we were working on with, there were cats that we have to consider and help, So the amount of things that can, convert into a development like this are amazing, and we have to deal with that currently.
So you were just, does it work? You were just talking about the expectation of the client, and actually the client is here, so let's just enjoy that. So what can the expectation of someone who commissions such a building can be in this state of the world?
Molt bé. Parlo en català, que també és una de les llengües...
I will speak in Catalan, if I may, which is one of the languages we have today in this session, and that we speak in Barcelona. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks for the award, which is an honor for us. And thank you so much, Elena and Guillermo, for the work that we have carried out together. Very quickly, Barcelona is a city that has developed a network of libraries in the past 30 years with an exponential growth and really giving great value to buildings as unique structures, public structures, social structures, as Eric Kleinen says, considering that they are buildings thought of for people, basically, buildings which pretend to maintain their role, in this case libraries, and the essence to foster reading and exchanging knowledge and information and cultural and social activities, but especially places where people can carry out relationship and community actions. To us, this model is very important, and we have developed this model as years went by, because what we want is people to come in alone to a library, but leave with 10 other people. We want these to be spaces for relations, for places where you can introduce technology, a place where each person can find their own space, depending on their own particular specific needs, spaces that could be collective, that could go beyond the building itself, being able to carry out activities beyond the building. So to us, it was very important to consider all this when defining the model. And to work with this initial model together with the team of architects is fundamental for us. So the expectations, which is what you were asking, were that the building should respond to all these things, to this model, that it would allow everyone to have these activities, have these relations, this bond with the building, based on this philosophy of this service.
Thanks a lot for the translation. And so let me jump to you with Plato, because the relationship between the architect and the client here is very special. As for the contemporary art gallery, there was not just a matter of responding to commissions, but rather to redefine the commission. And so I wanted to ask you both if you think that the role of the architect is really shifting now, even if for a long time architects have been sometimes changing the sense of the commission and transforming it, but do you think that it's a great part of the architect's missions in the future? How do you see the relation between you two evolve during the project?
Hello? It's okay? Maybe it's better. Okay. Maybe I can start with this question of transformation, because Plato, as an institution for contemporary art, it's based in effect on a phenomenon of transformation or processuality, because we started on ground zero 11 years ago with the money and rented space without background like we have right now. And during this 10, 11 years, we get through 1, 2, 3, 4 different places. It's in a very quick time. We change and transform our own background and activities and formats of our activities 4 times. And the last transformation, it's a new one, it's under the process. When we met for the first time with Robert and we started to think about our common future, it was quite hard, I can say, because the contemporary art, as I see it, is based on phenomenon on transformation or on openness, and the building it not depend on what it looks like, but the building is a fixed structure in effect. And
well, it has sliding doors, so it's...
Yeah, but you have the fixed place, and the characteristic of this place can be very different and very confused, but it is something substantial. And my vision of the institution as an institution in permanent transformation not correspond at the beginning with Robert's vision of a very conceptual thinking about the space. But during this process of making the project and finalizing the whole building, we can get closer and closer, and I don't change my mind, but Robert changed a lot, and I think that at the end we both are satisfied with the collaboration and with the points we get through. So it was quite complicated, but we both are happy at the moment.
Well, but from what I understood, it was supposed to be just a building, and then it extended to the public space outside. So
yes.
Is this something, so you got convinced also to open to a more broader space? So actually the project got transformed in the meantime, and it's still, right? This is what you explained.
It's up to you.
Yes, well, it was a long journey that has led up to this very moment. As an architectural studio, well, we often had to undergo transformation. We often had to change our mindset. It all started from an old historical building, and to preserve that historical fabric was already a challenge, but we really wanted to do everything possible to save the building. That's why we participated in the competition. But the idea on how to open the building, well, it resulted in a number of further opportunities. And we provided the Plato Gallery with these new opportunities. We provided the end users with new opportunities, and a new space was created. Initially, I have to say, we imagined things differently. Well, Marek has already alluded to it, but let me rephrase that. Initially, our ideas were different. We had to come to an agreement over time. And eventually, this building really works great to serve the purpose of the Plato Contemporary Gallery, because this gallery is very open in nature. It's a gallery that's open to all, and the fact that art can now move outside of the gallery walls is what really lies, well, close to our heart. And I have to say that initially we thought that it would be a very conventional, white box kind of an art gallery. But Plato is so much more, and it offers so much more to visitors. We discussed the democratization of art, but the democratization of culture, broadly understood culture as well, because all of the events that are held at the Plato Gallery is something that has come to surprise us. I will hold a lecture very soon at the Plato Gallery on how we changed our mindset. But interestingly enough, well, you yourself, Madam Moderator, alluded to the times when we studied architecture. We would learn how to build buildings from scratch, but now we've undergone a transformation in terms of mindset. We are more selective about the competitions that we participate in. We've just recently discussed it with the jurors of the Mies van der Rohe Award. We discussed the future competitions, and we keep asking ourselves these questions: what sort of competitions we want to participate in, and what sort of buildings or designs we're interested in. Because there are some things that we're no longer interested in, but there are other projects that we would very much like to be engaged in.
But were you expecting that the art gallery would become such a public space? I've heard that even dogs are allowed to enter and gather in the space. So it's such like a change in what you expect from an art gallery from the beginning.
I always think about the public institution I see it as not as a building, not as a space, not as some fixed structure, but the institution is very complex connections between people. And if you think in this way, you can use everything what you have for your disposal and transform it. And if the building for the institution is good, and I think our building is very good, you can transform very quickly and in a right way. And this is also a symbolical thing for whole city, because Ostrava is a former industrial city from the middle of 19th century till 2000 maybe, and now it is a city which transforms itself very quickly, and we are maybe a symbol of this transformation, small but important symbol. And contemporary art can do a lot of things, not only with the building, but also with the city.
Yeah, and just before Elena Orte was talking about the library and the fact that some spaces were programmed and really well programmed, and here it's like a different setting where it's not programmed for specific use as it's moving from inside to outside and depending on the exhibitions. So we just see also that it's two ways of approaching a space that is programmed for a certain use and another one that is more open, and so this is why I want to jump to Paula del Rio, talking about the design of public space, as public space is always, of course, a work of transformation, it's obvious, but it also touches on something that is fundamental and that has long been ignored, which is the ground, the soil, the geology, the earth's crust. And so your partner was just talking before about the projects that could seem super small and super little, very little transformation. But do you think people approach architectural program differently after having worked on public space, on a project that concerns like ground and soil in such a fine way?
Can I use that? ¿Sí? ¿Funciona este? Okay.
Okay.
So, there's two parts of your question. One is we learned a lot by working in this project because it is in a village with very few people for which this space is of maximum importance. So it becomes very personal for a lot of people. We had to talk to them with Major Luis. We had to explain what was going to happen, and that is, with no doubt, part of the success of the project, and also from what we learned. And about the soil or the pavement, the floor, it is not. It's something material and something very strong, but it's actually also a question of identity. It is very important for those people that the materiality of that space is continuous. So we just drew a little bit and invented a center, and that's it, no more. Not else was needed.
But how do people react when touching the ground? Do you think like it's something that touches them even more than moving some materials that are above ground?
They love it because they feel like it's theirs already, which is the whole identity or appropriation thing. This thing João was saying, that it looks like we did nothing, is because what we did there disappeared automatically, and now it was always like that. It doesn't bother, it doesn't move people. It's just calmly. It has become part of the progress of that square very calmly. It's part, that square or that space was built not very long ago. Then it was a car park. Now it's that open area, and softly will become other things in the future.
Very interesting. I hadn't thought of this vision of identity more linked to the ground than other things, but I would like to keep on this question of the ground with Amelia Tavella, because when you presented just a few minutes ago, you said that you worked as an archaeologist during the research phase of your project, and this project that is so a transformation, an extension, you talking about the rebirth of a building, so it has very strong, it's a very strong symbol, almost like kind of a ghost of the former building. So I wanted to ask you about this archaeologist method, because archaeologists work from removing and are looking for traces in the ground, and So I wanted to ask you about that. Is there a link that is specific to our times, from architecture to archaeology, from maybe a building to removing, from looking for traces, from finding something to looking for traces?
Je vous remercie. Ça fonctionne. Le micro fonctionne?
Actually, I speak French, so I will understand you. But I don't know. Great.
Je crois que je suis sans cesse en quête de traces invisibles.
Well, I think that I'm always looking for invisible prints. Had I not been an architect, I would have been an archaeologist, because I just love everything that has to do, what could have been our past, what came before us. And I think that this approach, this multidisciplinary approach, which tells us about the past of a building or a place, is the best possible way to eventually, as an architect, because after all, what we do is transform and translate everything into the most fair architectural response to have a playing field, and to then own the building and the space. And I think this is the notion that is particularly important, this notion of the footprint that is so visible in the building of the convent in Saint-François. What I wanted to do was rebuild upon what was no longer there. I wanted to, in a sense, reproduce the curves of what had disappeared. And I would say I've almost done it from a psychoanalytical approach. To me, architecture is something very intuitive. I have in me the ghosts of all the island. I am not associated with any other architects, but I do work with a writer, who has taught me to tell the story of things, to tell the story of places. And in this way, we can give the past all its importance, because it has shaped us. And I think this also is applicable to all these buildings which we find in a specific place, in a collective space. So we have this organic dimension, which is almost alive, that I give to buildings, and which takes me to think that when I win a competition, what will happen is an encounter between the building and myself. And so archaeology is, as well, a way to enter in something that is very passionate and pull the thread which is endless and which gives me all the strength I need. I have the feeling that I share here with all my colleagues the difficulty that has been brought about by all these projects, in the sense of the study and the implementation phase. But I think that reaching the end of these projects, which are highly bold and brave, but they're also very demanding, because I work in a small municipality and everyone knows each other, and they expect, they wait for us to finish our projects. And so I think that this way of seeing things is very important. I think that this approach, I mean, that thanks to the passion and desire, we can reach the end of our projects.
So what happens when the commons are quite negative? And this is the expression of a French philosopher named Alexandre Monin, the negative commons. When working on a polluted site, when you find that your building and your project is on a ground, a soil that is polluted, how can it become something that is common to other?
Wiesz, w ogóle a propos transformacji.
Speaking of transformation, speaking of public spaces, speaking of the contaminated soil that you've referred to, well, in our case, we have also changed our mindset considerably, because initially, this space around the building was not within the scope of the competition. But we really didn't want to give up on that. We wanted to put up a fight for the surrounding space as well. But the fact is that initially we acted more schematically, maybe following the old ways. And I think it was 8 years ago that we visited Barcelona. We received the prize for the best public space in Europe. That was for the Center of Dialogue Przełomy in Szczecin. And in fact, it is a public space. The roof of the building of that museum in Szczecin at the same time is a concrete square that serves the local residents. And initially we thought of it as a concrete square. And then over time we understood that what the city needed was more city greens. We became involved in the transformation of the design. We changed the way we thought about the public space. And I believe that our building might have not received the award now because we have changed our viewpoint, largely all of us. So everything really is under transition, under transformation these days. But what was interesting when we worked on the public space around the Plato Gallery together, what we observed was that, if us architects could not have an impact on everything, and that was our initial instinct, that we wanted to have control over everything. But when we let other people in, when we made employees of the Plato Gallery more involved, when we also engaged the local community more, well, all of a sudden it turned out that something quite brilliant transpired. Maybe it was not in line with our initial vision, but in fact it was so much more, because what we managed to accomplish was a more engaging aesthetic. We realized that it was a place that served to gather people, that the local community is more involved in what's going on, and the permaculture around the building now follows its natural cycle. And in fact, there are edible crops around the building. It's something unthinkable if you go several years back. You can now grow edible crops. It's a former slaughterhouse, and in the past animals were murdered there, but now there are edible crops growing around the building, and you can actually pick them up and eat them. So it was a fantastic transformation, and we have learned a lot based on that design and on that collaborative project. And I think that this is going to result in a changing mindset for us as well. We will be working differently on the further future projects.
Speak about the green part of our project. It's a very complicated situation also for the institution, because it's about care. It's about long-term projects. It's about growing up all these things and transformation of whole greenery in a perspective of, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's not ready, and this is sometimes it could be a problem. And I understand, for example, the investor, the city of Ostrava, that they sometimes don't understand that we finished the project and the garden is not ready. But I answer to this question very simply. The time is on our side. And we need a time. We need a time for the transformation. We need a time for understand each other. We need a time for understand what we are doing, what are doing people around us, and the garden and the permaculture is a absolutely perfect example and instrument how to transform and how to how to be aware.
Hi, I think this is the perfect conclusion as we're running out of time. So thanks all, and I think we'll see each other in like 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes here for the next panel. Thank you.